So I wanted to start by offering you two definitions of feminism from 200 years apart. And also because how can we discuss gender without having the word vagina on a slide? That would be a terrible, terrible oversight. So 200 years ago, Mary Wollstonecraft offered her definition. 200 years later, Caitlin Moran offered a different one. They're basically the same thing. Why am I talking about this at all? Because we're still discussing it. We're still discussing the role of gender and what that means in our society. So we haven't sorted it yet. And what does that mean in the business world? That means that we currently, in Australia, according to recent statistics, only 3% of CEOs, 8.4% of board directors, and 8% of key management personnel, whatever that mysterious and glamorous title really means. That's a really small percentage of them, given that 45.3% of the whole Australian workforce is female. And as Warren Buffett said recently, if obvious benefits flow from helping the male component of the workforce achieve its potential, why in the world wouldn't you want to include its counterpart? And what does that mean for women? Currently, they're still sitting at a real and continuing pay gap. There's a disparity in who looks after kids, and it starts really young. So where do we begin? Well, it's time to put up or shut the fuck up. I'd like to invite Anita Jacoby, Peta Southcombe, Elly Michelle Clough, and Ian Perrin to offer their perspectives.
I'm in the broadcasting industry, and I've found that the gender discrimination has been very pronounced over many years. In fact, I've actually lived and breathed it on a number of occasions in my career, so I speak from experience. One particular time I was the second in charge on the Today Show in the days that Liz Hayes and George Negus hosted the show, and I was up for the top job, and not once, not twice, but 3 times was an executive producer, a male executive producer brought in above me and taken that job. And on the 3rd time I actually went to my boss and I went to resign, who was then the head of News and Current Affairs. By the way, is this Chatham Rules? It just suddenly dawned on me.
No, we're all on the record all the time.
Oh, we're on the record, okay. So this was at a certain network in Sydney. And I went and saw this, my boss, and he said, great, well, I'll give you a job as an associate producer on 60 Minutes, which he thought was a promotion. And I went there and I worked there for 2 years as an associate producer with about 15 men. And I kept going in there and saying, I'm sorry, I'm doing exactly the same roles as what they're doing. I should be a producer. And it took me 3 years to get there. So a lot of my views today have been shaped by that past. But I really believe what's really important is if you're any good at your job, whether you're male or female, at the end of the day, you will actually rise to the occasion. What I am amused is I picked up the brochure here today and I looked at all the females who are doing the keynote speaking on the sessions today and tomorrow, and I think there's one. And I think that that's indicative of perhaps how the industry still views women.
Peter.
So I'm Peta Southcombe. I'm a marketing analytics manager at Maxis. I wrote the article with the stars on it. And I understand that the article was very controversial. And I'm really happy to be here today, though, because it gives me an opportunity to clarify some of the points I made in that article. I don't for one second deny that there's inequality. I know that there has been inequality in the past and there continues to be. I really loved Elly's response in her article. You know, the things that she said were accurate and I respected her opinion. I really respected the comments as well. Ironically, I agreed with a lot of them, which is why it's really nice to be here today. My opinion is, though, we do have inequality, but when we see evidence of equality, for example, if a woman is promoted to a very senior role, that we focus on her talent and the fact that she is, you know, her qualifications have given her that promotion, and that we don't focus on her gender. Because to me, and it's just my opinion, by focusing on her gender in that point of view, it sort of imbalances us again, because then we're focusing on something that we're sort of trying to even out. In my experience, I have never suffered inequality in my role, and I'm very lucky about that. I know it obviously goes on still. I'm very proud to be part of a company that has a very even level of females at management levels. You could call me naive, but I think that my naivety is a view of hopefully what's to come. I'm quite optimistic about the future. I think the future, even though it could be, you know, I'm not saying that things are going to change overnight, but I think that someone like me having such an optimistic view is a really positive thing. I believe that I can go as far as any other guy out there, And I think that, you know, if this continues, and hopefully there are other people out there my age that have my same point of view, I think that even a lot of the boys I know have the same view as I do, that there is an equality somewhere. I think that it's, you know, the future would look really good.
My name's Elly, I'm the publicist at the Belvoir Street Theatre, and I wrote the other article responding to Peter's article. I'm a very proud feminist. I'm not afraid to use the F word. Very happy to stand up and shout and be quite radical on that front. I disagree with Peter when she says, you know, we need to stop making a fuss about gender when women are promoted to roles, because the fact is it is still such the exception, and no significant social change has ever happened by people being quiet and, you know, just getting along and hoping that eventually it'll all sort itself out. Change happens when there's rebellion, when there's voices at the, you know, voices at the line. And, you know, perhaps we're not going to take to the streets a la Turkey at the moment, but I do very passionately believe that change happens when we talk about it. Change happens when we highlight that there's a problem and we talk about solutions. We're really positive, totally agree. I'm also incredibly optimistic. I think one of the things that's really exciting about young people today is they're not recognising the inequality because they don't see it. You know, at those entry levels, you don't see inequality. But I don't believe in trickle-down feminism. I believe that we have to be really upfront. We need to be on the front foot, and it's not just going to happen. We have to talk about it. We have to come up with solutions. We have to talk about what the problems are, and hopefully at the end of this session we'll have some exciting ideas.
And obviously, as the only male on this panel, it's a very difficult position for me to be in. I think I also wrote an article in Mumbrella. It sounds like always sitting around writing articles in Mumbrella, but one of the things that frustrates me, and is probably broader than just a conversation around equality and gender equality within the media industry, is I think there is a general apathy in Australia towards the issue of equality. And I think for a country that's come so far, I still think that there's a strong undercurrent of sexism. I think there's an undercurrent of racism. If anyone sees or saw what happened last week with the Eddie Maguire scandal, I think it's hard to get away from that racism in the country. The fact that we don't have gay marriage in this country. So I think as a progressive society, I think it's up to all of us to keep on pushing the boundaries so that people are equal. And then the reason I wrote the article is I got an email, the first email from the MFA, which is the Media Federation of Australia, to all of the CEOs of the media companies, and all of them were men, and all of their EAs or assistants were copied on the email, and they were all female. So I thought, you know, here is this bigger issue in society, and we as a media industry couldn't be, you know, we should be at the forefront of these issues, and yet on something like gender, we are massively backwards in terms of where we should be.